Hello everyone, this is POW Ponder on Weather, and this update we're going to be talking about Tropical Storm Elsa bringing mudslides and flash flooding to Jamaica as it crosses Cuba into the Gulf, re-strengthening early next week and then impacting Florida. So if you do like weather ready content, please subscribe to my channel as I will upload daily updates to keep you ahead of the storm. Good afternoon, everyone. This is July 4th. I appreciate everyone wishing my wife and I anniversary yesterday. We had a quick little getaway, but we're back now, and we've got a tropical storm to talk about, which is Elsa. It is moving at northwest at 14 miles an hour. It's packing winds of 60 miles an hour. It's continuing expecting to cross over Cuba. They still have tropical storm warnings still in effect for the island of Jamaica. They've got tropical storm watches for the Cayman Islands, as well as tropical storm warnings for Cuba. And this will cross over into the Gulf of Mexico early next week. And then also, they already have tropical storm force warnings into Key West, as well as the southern tip of Florida, where they have those tropical storm watches. So let's delve into the details. Let's first take a look at the satellite picture, and it looks pretty ominous, actually. It's not really a pretty system, but since it's kind of elongated, it's spreading some winds and some heavier rain pretty much over the entire island of Jamaica right now. So they're really taking the brunt of this system currently, and that's going to be impacting the Cayman Islands. But yeah, they're already experiencing mudslides and flash flooding into Jamaica. That'll impact the Cayman Islands here going into night, going into Monday. It'll reach portions of the Bahamas, but that's why they've already got tropical storm warnings and watches out for the southern Florida, because it's expected to cross over Cuba going into tomorrow into Tuesday, and then possibly re-strengthening and actually going from a 60 mile per hour to a 70 mile per hour tropical storm right before landfall, and it could make landfall somewhere in and around the Tampa Bay area. So that is definitely a concern by early middle of next week, as it's really going to be packing some heavy winds and some very heavy rain for a good chunk of Florida. So let's kind of zoom into Jamaica currently right now. This is what the radar actually looked like right around 1:20 this afternoon, and you can definitely see that was expected to pass north of Jamaica, which it did in fact do. But onto the south side, you're still going to be, impacted with those very heavy rains. And this is that current radar at 1 o'clock. I mean, you can pretty much see the entire island is covered with very heavy rainfall as this continues moving off into the northwest. Here's another radar look at it. This is the path, and so it was traveling about 31 miles an hour. It was booking it quick, and then yesterday it came to an abrupt stop. I mean, it just stopped dead in its tracks, and you can actually see it kind of backed up a little bit. But when it did that, it actually reformed a new center, and as it reformed, it actually slowed down the system basically more than in half. So it went from a 31 mile per hour to a 14 mile per hour movement, and that but continued lifting off into the northwest. You can see it got fairly close to Jamaica, and this is what another radar looked like at 2 o'clock this afternoon, still dumping some very heavy rain into Kingston and the southern portions of Jamaica. And here's some of the rainfall totals. I mean, some of these totals are pretty impressive, anywhere from 1 to 3 inches, even into Innswood down here by Kingston, almost 5 inches of rain. And that is as of 2 o'clock, and it's still raining currently right now. So that's the concern in Jamaica. They're experiencing those mudslides and that flash flooding that will continue to impact the island over the next 6 to 12 hours as this continues lifting off to the northwest. But you'll still get that backside feature going to be raining for much of the evening as this continues through. Here's the latest European model. It's finally caught on board with the GFS, is what they've been saying all along with this system, that it would continue westward, tracking over Cuba, and then lessening a little bit, but then possibly re-strengthening by Tuesday morning. It should be off the coast of west coast of Florida in and around the Naples area as this continues with shift off further, say, northward by then. And as we get into Wednesday morning, this actually should shift off into the northeast, but almost take a direct impact right in and around the Tampa Bay area, possibly as a 70-mile-per-hour formidable tropical storm with some very heavy rain. And then as it moves across, it's still going to be packing a punch as it crosses Orlando too. So both sides of the Florida is going to get hit with this system with wind and heavy rain as this would continue up the Carolina coast. So here's the overall track to what it would look like between now and Wednesday. It's essentially coming off of Jamaica later on tonight. It's getting in and around the Cayman Islands. It's crossing over Cuba. It's going to decelerate a little bit over the mountain regions, but then reform back in the Gulf and kind of get its act back together again. And yeah, by the time it makes landfall again, it could be down to another 998 formidable tropical storm by then, as it impacts Tampa Bay, potentially crossing over, bringing tropical storm force winds even into Orlando on the other side as well. And that would continue crossing over, bringing those tropical storm force winds into portions of Georgia, getting into the South Carolina coast here as well. So let me kind of zoom in and take you over the next 3 days for Florida. Now, this rainfall going into tomorrow morning, that's actually going to be the remnants of a stalled cold front that's going to be bringing some heavier rains to the panhandle and the northern regions of Florida. But as we go into the day on Tuesday morning, you start to get the impacts from Elsa from the south side. So you live in places on the south side into Naples, going into Tampa Bay, you're going to start feeling the brunt of this system in a big way. And yes, by Wednesday morning, you're going to be really feeling the effect in much of Miami, into Tampa Bay, into Orlando, even going into Jacksonville as this continues lifting off into the northeast, dumping some very heavy rain along the way and still keeping those tropical storm force conditions for much of the state of Florida as it continues moving off to the northeast. So if we expand the view, kind of really give you a full depiction, this is what's happening for the rest of the country. We have what they call an upper trough, and then the remnants of 95L are going to be impacting the central portions of Texas. So you should be seeing some heavier rainfall as you get into the day on Monday into Austin, the San Antonio, especially getting creeping down into Houston and around the Corpus Christi area. You also have some rain, some what you read it named in the desert Southwest as well. Even in fact, yesterday, Phoenix picked up a quarter-inch of rainfall. That was a welcome relief for them as you start to see some of those monsoon rains kind of creep in, and then some much needed rains in and around New Mexico as well. But as we creep into the day on Tuesday, that just extends the rains even further in those same regions, and then still, yes, dumping some very heavy rain, if not flooding rains to the south side, going into Corpus Christi, going into Houston, San Antonio, with impacting some very heavy rain. You have another system up north here that's also going to be dumping some very heavy rain into Minnesota, going into portions of Wisconsin as well, going through the day on Tuesday. So as we expand the view, and as Elsa will continue lifting off into the northeast, it should be a formidable tropical storm still, packing tropical storm force conditions, even as it gets out of Georgia into the South Carolina region. Probably has about a 45-mile-per-hour tropical storm by then. But as it continues lifting off into the northeast, it'll finally shift off into the coast of the Atlantic, and then it's going to be well away from the New England states to have any impact whatsoever from Elsa, as this will be a distant memory, and we can finally actually say goodbye. But that won't actually be until Friday to Elsa. So if we expand the view and look at some of the temperatures of what's happening for the rest of the country for the next week, you can definitely see where we've been high and dry for predominantly the summer. It continues to remain high and dry for much of the west, much of the northwest, as we continue looking at those well above average temperatures with that dominant ridge in place, where the unsettled weather pattern continues with just the combination of opening the Gulf up into Texas and Oklahoma and Kansas, some of the southern states into the southeast. Yes, you're going to be below average just by default because of all the cloud cover and all the rain that you're going to be associated with over just the first half of the week. But even if we expand the view going into after the 9th, so basically from July the 9th until July the 14th time frame, so the following week, this ridge possibly could even intensify further going into the west and the Pacific Northwest as well, with those 15, almost 20 degrees above average temperatures, and just be on the total flip side of that. And it's going to continue to be well below average for much of Texas, much of Arkansas, much of Missouri, much of the central regions, as again, you just have that unsettled weather pattern with some of the cloud cover that's expected in those regions. Those temperatures will be well below average as we go through the 9th and the 14th time frame. And even the National Weather Service pretty much has the same depiction, where the northwest is predominantly going to be dig in of that ridge of high pressure. They're going to be in that heat bubble, that heat dome, and that's just going to be adding insult to injury out there, with drier conditions just continue to impact those areas, as where they're getting some of the above average rainfall into much of Texas, and where there's going to be opening the Gulf. Yeah, you can definitely see for the southern regions as this comes up the coast. Yeah, you're going to be experiencing those above average rains and below average temperatures. Then once Elsa moves out of Florida, by the time the 8th rolls around, you should start to see a drying period for you guys, and Florida will start drying out from Elsa. But between now and then, here's the rainfall totals for the next 10 days. Yeah, definitely predominantly where the ridge of high pressure is out in the west and northwest. You can't buy a drop out there, but where the combination of these cold fronts, these troughs are going to be digging in from the south, and the opening the door from the Gulf flow, yeah, you're going to be seeing much above average rainfall, if not flooding rains along the coast. So definitely a concern if you live in, say, Corpus Christi's area, into San Antonio, along the Rio Grande Valley here, for some very heavy rain and flash flooding in those regions, right along that stall boundary here along the southern coast. And then there's the rains from Elsa, as would continue lifting off from Cuba, going to be impacting much of Florida next week. And where that comes inland, going into Tampa and probably in and around the Orlando area, yeah, you definitely is flash flooding. That's a huge concern. Not only just the wind, but also the very heavy rain that going to be impacting those areas, especially as we go into Tuesday and Wednesday. But that will continue lifting off. But it's a small feature, so it'll just hug the coast. You're starting to get the impacts from the southern portions of Georgia into the Carolinas. But as this moves off the coast with it right side loaded, all the precipitation will be well out in the ocean, and you're not going to have little to no impacts for much of the mid-Atlantic states and of the Northeast from Elsa. All this rain will be from a stalled boundary that you're going to be impacted for much of the week. So you're still going to get a lot of rain. You're just not going to get the rains from Elsa. So, hey, I appreciate you guys watching. Do like this video. Definitely leave your comments below. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel to catch the latest update, where I protect you before and after the storm.